biggest takeaway you can get?
Thank you very much, you guys, for letting me give my presentation today in the class. I am currently finishing up my master's degree through the California State University, Bakersfield, CSU, Bakersfield. I'll be finishing up this in the winter semester, so we're in a quarter as it turns out to be. The current class I'm taking, as you can see, is on social emotional learning and education. And my presentation today is starts out by discussing a meta-analysis, as was done by Joseph Durlak, and then moves into one of the things that his group of researchers determined as being a process that will help to make social emotional learning more successful in our classrooms. Okay. Have you guys noticed that when you're learning about something, or it's on your mind, whatever it happens to be, it just seems to be showing up everywhere in the world? Just this last week, while driving in my car listening to NPR, they were on the radio talking to Damon. His name was Damon Johnson. Blanking on his name, but Damon. He's a researcher from and a doctor from Penn State University, and he presented a paper this week. Him and his group presented a paper where they were talking about social emotional learning. And then yesterday, I was in an ice cream shop, and the young lady behind the thing who's in high school says to me, "So, how's your day going?" I say, "Well, I'm currently working on this paper." She says, "Oh, what's your class?" I said, "Social emotional learning." She says, "Oh, I took that in middle school." And I said, "And what do you mean by that?" I'm just curious. And she said that she was 2 days a week, she and her students she and her classmates would go and take social emotional learning class, where they would sit around and talk about what's going on with them and such. And I thought that was really out of the blue. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing so much. I kind of get the concept. I certainly work on these things in my class, but as far as it being research and being a whole area of education, it seems to be popping up quite a bit, especially even on our campus here, where we had the Beyond the Locker come in to work on character development and such. It certainly seems to be coming down the pipeline, and it's going to be showing up in our classes soon, and so being prepared for that would be a good thing. Social emotional learning is basically learning of non-cognitive, sometimes called soft skills, that students, or that we all have to varying different degrees. Examples of these skills could be empathy, self-control, social intelligence, gratitude, such as those. Those types of skills are not the things that a lot of us have thought in the past determine our success in life. I speak specifically of my brother, who wanted his child to be intelligent. So all I cared about when his child was being born was that he's intelligent. And a lot of people in the past have really focused on IQ and intelligence and thought that's really what's going to make a big difference in life. But we're finding out that it's a little bit different than that. We're finding out that the skills that we had at a very young age are making a huge difference in where we get to in life. Once again, that NPR study, or the study that I was listening to on NPR by Damon Jones, not Johnson. They took records from 20 years ago on students that they've been following for 20 plus years, these kids, and they have records of them from in kindergarten and what the teachers were saying about them throughout their school age years, and they find very specific details about students that had this quality tend to do much better in this area in life, and they're much more likely to graduate from high school. Students who are having this difficulty when they were 4 and 5 years old are far more likely to be imprisoned, or far more likely to have dropped out of school, or far more likely to not be able to hold a job. And these are skills that they were able to recognize in them when they were very little kids. Okay? And so this research by Mr. Jones and by Mr. Durlak is very much in the hope of recognizing these skills early, and then trying to put in effort to make these kids' lives better by improving these skills. Whether or not you can improve these skills is another question that Mr. Durlak went into. So for my class, I recently read a meta-analysis by Mr. Joseph A. Durlak and several other researchers. And they looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different research analyses by people throughout the world. Some of these were international. And they were looking at all the, and they chose all the research analyses that fit within a certain range that they thought they could work with and kind of crunch together and find out whether or not they could answer some hypotheses that they had. They wanted to know something, and so they put all this information together into a big machine and crunched it down and put an exhaustive amount of work into trying to verify some hypotheses that they had. Their first hypothesis was that school-based SEL programs would yield significant positive means effects across a variety of skills, attitude, behavioral, and academic outcomes. So they came in with a hopeful notion of believing that social emotional programs that are being offered throughout the United States and throughout the world would, in fact, if you took all those programs and you put them together and you had a meta-analysis, you would be able to verify a positive effect both in social emotional skills and also in academic skills. And they did in fact find that SEL programs did in fact yield significant positive effects on the targeted social emotional competencies as well as the attitudes and others. They also found that not only were they able to improve these recognizable skills, they also found that the students gained an average of 11 percentile gain in their academic achievement as well if they had participated in a qualified SEL program or something that fit with the different realm or expectations that they had for a social emotional learning program. The second hypothesis was that the programs that were conducted within the classrooms by teachers and other school staff would produce significant outcomes, because there is some belief, or some people who would imagine or would assume that you would need to have a professional psychologist do these programs. You need to have groups like Beyond the Locker come in and take over the program because they are trained to do this and they know how to do this and they can have the outcomes, and that it might be difficult for us as classroom teachers because we have so much to do in our classrooms. How can we throw on something else? And our students come to us to learn art, for all of us, and so it really didn't fit for them to be able to learn these other things in the classroom. But they suspected that they would in fact have positive outcomes with classroom teachers. And they found that they did in fact have success. Classroom teachers and other school staff were able to effectively conduct SEL programs, and that these interventions could be incorporated into the routine educational practices, and they did not require the outside personnel. Now, there were a couple other hypotheses that I didn't include here. One of them was that they thought that they hypothesized that programs that were within the classroom and covered by the entire school, somewhat supported by the school and inside the classroom, would in fact be even better than just the programs that were within the classroom. But they found that not to be true, and they suspected that was because of the difficulty of organizing things between an administration and a classroom, and that it works better just to keep it within the classroom environment, or they found that, and they wanted to do further research on that as to why exactly they didn't succeed as well when they were working within, where the program was offered by the school and the classrooms as well. The other hypothesis that I didn't include here suggested something that seems fairly obvious to me, was that programs that talked about problems that they had within their program or administering their program would have less success than programs that did not mention ever having difficulties with their program. And that seems a little obvious, but they did in fact find that programs that did not specifically reference problems that they had in the program were in fact more successful than the others. So the last hypothesis that I want to spend some time with there today, there's a broad agreement, this is from Durlak's meta-analysis, there's a broad agreement that programs are likely to be effective if they use a sequenced step-by-step training approach. These active forms of learning focus focus sufficient time on skills development, and have explicit learning goals. Okay. So they call these things SAFE programs. And basically what it is that they looked at all the different programs that within their meta-analysis. And they picked out the ones that they thought followed this protocol, meaning that they were specifically sequenced, they kept the students active and focused and efficient. They followed these very specific protocols, and they found that the programs that followed these protocols were more successful than programs that did not follow these protocols. So I thought I would take this time today for us to discuss, as this is going to come down our way soon enough into our classrooms, and perhaps we can be prepared for it and try to use these protocols ourselves, how we might work within our classrooms to be sequenced, active, focused, and explicit with our students. So I gave you guys a paper this morning and asked you to take a look at it, and I'm happy to see that you guys have done quite a bit of writing on these things, so I appreciate that very much. Nobody likes to be given homework by their colleagues. I'm going to go ahead and start out with sequencing and discuss something that I do in my classroom in an effort to improve my work, something that I've learned over the years. Didn't do it early on, and I had a specific problem with it with my classes, and I started doing this, and I found great success, which is that my students tend to, I teach woodwork in class, so it's very process oriented, and the students really want to know where they're going before they go there. They need to see the end of the line. If they just come into class and just kind of work on something, and I tell them sooner or later they're going to be done with it, they didn't seem to like that early on, and some students would go really slowly and really always come up with the, what am I going to do next? What do I do now? What do I do now? And sometimes it had been a few days since they didn't even work because they didn't know what they were going to be doing next, and they just kind of hung out. I found that I had much more success when I created a procedures list for the students that outlined step by step by step everything they were going to be doing on the project, and I further found out later on that I could incorporate into that a checklist for them to use that included areas for them to come and check with me, and that gave me an opportunity to see how they were progressing at that point. So not only did they know where they were going, they knew when they needed to come up and show me their work, and then that allowed me an opportunity to catch things that they might be doing wrong at that point in some way. Okay. I'm going to open it up to see if anybody has any comments on that, or it's a good idea. Yeah, they very much like getting the signatures. They like having my signature on the book. Mr. Olson, you didn't sign this. I said, I'm a little busy right now. I'll get that. No, I need the signature. They very much like the signature, and it helps them because it gives them a daily knowledge that they've done what they do. It also allows them to kind of feel like, oh, I definitely did this right. I'm in a good place to move on. Okay. Now, somebody offer up a way in which you keep your students active in your classrooms?
So one thing for goal setting, like in terms of social emotional, like there could be a monthly character trait. I know that there's one thing called 8 great traits. One could be kindness or respect or different things, where the student sets a goal about their own. It could be a subject like art, what they want to do and how they want to achieve that. And so one way to make that active is similar like accountability, but also having that goal for a week and it can build over the month. So for example, maybe they want to show kindness by reading a book about kindness. And at the end of the week, you sign it off, read it, and check in or something. And following up with that, like reading aloud picture books or having some kind of interactive class discussion about the topic, and making sure students are all present for that is something that is like a common class experience. So some students really need that. They shouldn't be with a different teacher during that time. They should be in the class. Also, choosing students to participate randomly. So making sure that all the students have a voice so that some of your really shy students or really talkative students don't overpower the discussions, making them kind of spreading it. It's hard in big classes, but making sure that all the students get a chance to participate.
Yeah, some students would like to participate, but they don't because they know that other people are gonna, they probably want more than me, so I'm just gonna let them do it, even though they would be willing to, and they'd probably be happy with themselves after they had participated and such, and they feel more part of the class. Okay, how about focused?
Yeah, that's me. To keep students focused. goals. I do visuals, like PowerPoint, and we're also graphic organizers, games and manipulators, whatever manipulators.
And how does that keep them focused?
Because if the teacher is talking too much, it's like 50-50. You have to give students, something to do, keep them engaged, things like that. I mean, that's what I.
Okay.
Okay, and for making sure your learning goals are explicit and clear as to avoid confusion. So I'm going to assume that there's been a prior introduction of classroom safety and conduct. I'm very process oriented like you are. So if you're looking at just a project, you're going to introduce the purpose of the project. So it's sort of like what you said, that you look at the span of it, where we're going to start, where we're going to end up. I might do a visual, like an inspiration slideshow. Some folks, they want to get their brain going, and if they see visuals, it might kind of kickstart demonstrating technique, just employing all sorts of different types of teaching. And then making sure that you have ample and appropriate materials ready for them. And then as the project might go on, you kind of recap, restate, regroup, and I have the students do that for each other, or for the class. What do we know about brushes? What do we do in this situation? And they kind of educate their peers, as well as people who may have been out that day. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that as these programs come up, and actually we can use this in all of our lessons, we should perhaps be focused on all four of these things within our lessons. But when we do find that we are looking at social emotional learning within our classroom, and I'm sure we're going to find it in our staff development meetings, we could reflect back on these four processes or four expectations that we might follow for this class for improving social emotional learning in our classes. Perhaps we can look back at this and maybe share out to our individual staffs, because this is because we're all from 4 different schools. Okay. Thank you very much.